Good morning. Appreciate you guys coming out and cover us. I'd like to open by telling Greg that I certainly appreciate the leadership that he provides, not only for our conference, but also for our sport. He does a great job representing us and making great decisions for our conference. I'd be remiss if I didn't also thank you guys for the coverage we get throughout the year. I think it's second to none in the SEC. As a former player and coached in this league a long time, the job you guys do is second to none. It makes our conference what it is. So that fires me up. I'd also like to take this time to shoot some missile prayers up to a good friend of mine and Dollar Nation. Missile prayers up to Tommy Parks and his wife Carmen, who is a legendary high school coach in our great state of Georgia. And he suffered a major heart attack a couple days ago, and at the age of 45, in our profession, that's pretty scary. So we're thinking about Tommy and his family this time. We're finishing up summer. They seem to be shorter than ever. These summers get shorter and shorter, and they turn around pretty quick. Very excited to get back to work in Athens with our staff. Everybody's back in this week, and we're excited to be there. But before bragging on the 3 student athletes we brought to represent us today, I'd like to brag on one that I actually brought last year, which doesn't normally happen. But Jeb Blazevich, who's on the ASCA team, works along with 3 other football players from the University of Georgia and 15 other student athletes. They went on a service learning trip to Costa Rica and gave away over 2,000 pair of shoes to impoverished children in a Souls for Soul project. I think anytime you're able to do that as a student athlete, it speaks volumes about your ability to give back to others. And there'll be a lot of things to talk about today, wins and losses, and all these things that are great for football. But at the end of the day, what Jeb and those 3 other football players from the University of Georgia did impacted so many more lives. And I think that's really what this sport is about, and it's awesome the things they've done. I think Jeb's part of the senior class now for us that's 17 deep, and 10 to 12 of those guys will be contributing. That leadership is going to drive us. We've got a much larger senior class, but we've also got a senior class that's going to contribute more. With me today are 3 very talented but also well-rounded student athletes. First of which is a junior linebacker out of Montezuma, Georgia. And not many of you guys will know where Montezuma is because you've got to be driving to Montezuma to find it. But Roquan Smith is one of our most exciting defensive players. He's an econ major that has over a 3.0 GPA. And that excites me about him. He does a great job representing our program, and you'll get to know him today. Sony Michelle, a senior, who decided to come back for her senior year from Hollywood, Florida, as he likes to call it. He's a communications major. And he has just as many talents off the field as he has on. And I think a lot of the media has got to witness that with his recent work with his music. Last but not least, the man of few words, which is why he was an easy pick to come today, Nick Chubb. Chubb is an ag econ major from Cedartown, Georgia. Nick and Sony are both within a few classes of graduation. Nick and Sony are a neat pair because they came in together. They formed a bond. They came from different backgrounds. One from down in Miami, one from Cedartown, a rural area in Georgia. They came to RVU together, running back U together. And I think that speaks volumes to the fact that these 2 guys have grown to love each other by living together and compete against each other and sharing carries. Today you'll get to meet those guys. They embody what the SEC is about. I was kidding them last night, and we were talking about I didn't really understand the difference in an econ major and an ag econ major. And Nick basically told me that he was going to start his own hot farm. And I had no idea what a hot farm was until I Googled it and looked at it. So Nick's into the ag econ part, and Roquan assured me that his major was much better than Nick's. So we'll let those 2 guys compete on that. We just finished the spring semester at the University of Georgia that we had our highest GPA in the last 10 years. Second highest we've ever had since we've been recording it. So that excites me about the kind of football players we're bringing back. We also had 10 guys doing internships this semester, which I think is really important for life after football, their ability to get involved in things outside just their sport. I guess this begins what you guys call the coach speak portion of the talk, but I think understanding expectations is a powerful synergy that exists between a player and a coach. There's no question in my mind the area is significantly heightened after you've been through a season together. You know, the expectations are conveyed and understood much easier after season one. We've got competition at every position on our team, which is an ingredient that's hard to measure. But it's a must if we're going to get to the place we got to get to improvement-wise. And that competition has been much heightened. Our all-season strength and conditioning and mindset training continue to develop our players at a pace I know it takes to compete at championship levels. Spring practice was extremely physical and competitive, and our players got to expand their knowledge of both offensive and defensive systems. We've been able to improve on all three phases, which is important to our growth and development. We had 6 mid-year enrollees who came in. There were 16 other newcomers who actually arrived the last day of May. So they've been able to be there more than a month, which I think is important for their academic development, but also for their football development. We've been able to integrate those freshmen in with the rest of the team, and our upperclassmen have done a great job helping us with that. This upcoming season, we start with App State, who's 28-5 over their last 33 games. You know, they're one of the top 4 teams in wins over the last 33 games in the country. And I think that says a lot about who they are. Their coach does a tremendous job. We then travel to South Bend to play Notre Dame. I think it's important to mention that we'll have a viewing party in our indoor facility of the 1980 National Championship game. They'll get to sit and watch that game if they're not actually going to the Notre Dame game. So that'll be an exciting venue for those guys to come back together and watch that game. Before we return back home to play Sanford, and I'd like to mention Sanford, because my father played football there. It's here in Birmingham. And also they're led by Chris Hatcher, who gave me my first full-time job as a football coach. And then we'll get right into the rigors of the SEC play. And we all know that's a challenging task. As far as expectations, I know everybody wants to talk about it and ask questions about it. For me, it's important that you understand, as the head coach of the University of Georgia, I'm proud to be there, but we embrace those as the coaching staff. We embrace those as our players. When you come to the University of Georgia, the expectation is to win championships. And that is what we expect to do at the University of Georgia, and that's the standard that we'll be held to. Thank you guys, and we'll open it up for questions.
Thank you, Coach. If you have a question, please raise your hand. A reminder, we ask that you please stand and give your name and affiliation. Joseph, Bridget, and Chase will come to you. So we'll go ahead and start right here in the center section, 3rd row.
Stephen Smith, a Touchdown Alabama magazine. Coach, briefly brought about Roquan Smith during your 2nd year as defensive coordinator at Alabama. You had a linebacker by the name of Rolando McClain who made some big-time plays. This is your 2nd year at Georgia. Do you see any of the similar characteristics of Roquan that you saw in Rolando?
Yeah, thanks, Stephen. Roquan is a standalone player. He's a guy that you can draw comparisons to a lot of players. If I had to draw a comparison, anybody would probably be closer to C.J. Mosley athletically, the ability to cover and move in space. But Roquan needs no comparison. He's a great leader. He's done wonders for our defense because he's a student of the game. But more importantly, he helps lead those guys. Roquan didn't get to go through spring practice, which was really hard on him because he wanted to be out there leading. He wanted to be part of that defense. Due to a shoulder injury, he wasn't able to do that. But he was in every meeting. He was at every practice. He got behind the offense, took his footwork steps. I mean, he's a unique kid that I think is really special. And we had that academic counselor telling him before our game that he had actually decided to do one major. And he came back after a couple of weeks and said, you know what, I need to challenge myself more than that. He got into Cherry College of Business and decided to major in economics, and he's got a 3.0 in there. So I think it speaks volumes to his character, and we're really fired up to have him.
Coach will go over to our left alongside the wall.
Gary Smith, Florida Time Union. Coach, with the veteran defense that you've got and the running backs that you have, does that mean you don't necessarily have to, despite his progress, don't have to put a lot on a still young quarterback's shoulders this season? Is that a real nice security blanket for him to have a couple of 1,000-yard rushers and a defense that might give him a lot of short fields?
Yeah, I think when you play quarterback in the SEC, there's no security blankets for that. I think you can ask any quarterback who's competed and played that you're going to go up against some of the most formidable defenses in the country. certainly happy to have those rushers back, but we've got to be able to create space for those guys and be able to run the ball better and more productive so that we can open up the passing game. He needs that help, and Jacob's been a guy that's openly admitted he's super happy to have Nick Chubb and Sonny Michel coming back. We've got other backs, you know, and I'm hoping that Jacob can open up that part of the offense and be able to expand it and open some things for Nick and Sonny. That's one of the big things for them coming back, was to be able to open that offense up and let those guys have a little more space. So we're excited to have them back, and I know Jacob is.
Coach will stay over here on the left side, second row. Bob.
Hey, Coach. Bob Holman, Arkansas Democrat Gazette. Were you surprised when Nick and Sonny both came back, and what was your reaction when they told you that?
Total elation. And I think Nick was the first guy to inform me, and I think maybe his decision weighed a little bit on the other guys that were decided. I think he made it okay to do. He showed the confidence, not only in our coaching staff, but in our total program, that he knows he's going to have an opportunity to get better and grow. And he's going to have that opportunity. I think Nick will tell you that he wasn't 100% last year, and he certainly has improved that. So with his ability to move up in the draft and create value for himself, he wanted to come back. I think that made it easier for Sonny. Those two guys have a mutual respect. They're very different personality-wise, but they're both very talented. And I think when Nick decided to come back, it made it easier for Sonny to make that decision as well.
Okay, we'll go in the center section on the right aisle.
Hey, Coach, Tom Hall with Kansas City Star. I was just curious, kind of generally, do you feel like quarterbacks get too much credit, too much blame for wins and losses? And you know, what do you think about like the quarterback win-loss record set, that kind of thing?
Well, I certainly think that's what they define coaches by and quarterbacks by. Let's be honest. They're going to always define, they put that record next to your name, no matter how long you end up coaching, it's going to follow you. So quarterbacks have that same battle. I think touchdown to interception is the same way. At times it can be misleading, but for some people that's the greatest indicator of success. I'm a big believer in completion percentage. And I think Jacob understands, and we've communicated throughout the spring, if he wants to change the win-loss record, we've got to change the completion percentage. And we've got to allow him to make some easier throws, and he's got to be more accurate doing so. But I think everybody's defined initially by that, just like championships define NFL quarterbacks. So it is part of it. It's what you know when you get in the game.
I believe we have one in the center section here.
Coach Bill Bender, Sporting News. You mentioned the viewing party for the Notre Dame game, and I guess two parts. One, have you coached there since your time at Florida State? And two, is that the type of springboard game in September that you guys have used to go on to bigger and better things?
Yeah, well, I have not coached there since that. I did coach as a graduate assistant at Florida State. I forget what year it was, but we went up and played in South Bend. We are certainly excited for that opportunity to go, but not one guy on that team has a lack of respect for Appalachian State, who we open with. And let's make sure we're clear that is our primary concern. We know the kind of team. I know the head coach at App State that does a tremendous job. And I think that it would be remiss to talk about the second game without first concerning yourself with Appalachian State, who does a tremendous job of recruiting our state and has a great senior quarterback that I got a lot of respect for.
Okay, we'll stay in the center section along the right aisle.
Coach, I was actually with the Red and Black. Last year at Media Days, you said you were kind of scared thinking about your defensive line. You didn't think they had the size or the depth there. Do you still feel that way this year? And is there a position where you are scared thinking about?
I don't think scared is a good term. I think anytime you talk about your units, there's obviously confidence in the defensive line now because we've got so many guys back. We had a lot of freshmen play last year on the defensive front. A lot of those guys have good size. I think stamina is important. I'm a big believer in having guys that can turn and chase the ball because there's so many loose plays. So if you can get guys that can run in the 300 pound, that's an added bonus. But the game's turning more and more towards the 280, 290 pound guys that can really run. And that's the thing we try to create and get more of because we've got some big bodies on the defensive front. But we want as many guys as we can flying to the ball. As far as what concerns me most in any of the units, I think overall it's each unit getting better. I think every unit we got can improve, and that's what we're going to try to do from now until fall camp starts, and then through fall camp up until that first game.
We'll stay in the center section, right in the middle.
Hey Coach, Ethan Trubish, Rock Nation. With a highly talented local guy like Jake Cron coming in, what are you expecting as far as the quarterback battle, and how much confidence do you have in Jacob Eason as he goes into his second season?
Well, I'm really excited about Jacob Eason's growth. To watch him over the spring, the confidence he played in the system with, the ability to throw the ball and understand where pressure's coming from, he's grown tremendously. You know, I think Coach Chaney's done a great job with him in this offseason of making him realize his weaknesses and continue to work on those. Just like every position on our team, kicker, punter, corner, right corner, left corner, it does not matter what position. Every coach will tell you there's great competition. If you've got a returning starter, he certainly has a head start. But with Jake Crom coming in, he did a good job this spring picking up the offense. He'll continue to grow, develop in the offense. He's a really good leader, and we expect him to come in and compete hard.
Okay, we'll go over to the left-hand side, Coach. No.
Mike Bianchi, Orlando Sentinel. Coach, as somebody who's been at Alabama, the Tide has won 17 straight SEC games, I think. Obviously, they've dominated the league recently. What's it going to take for the rest of the league to catch up?
You know, that's a common question at this event, and I think the biggest thing is recruiting and development. A lot of people say it's one or the other. Do you recruit great players or do you develop great players? And when you do both, that's when you've got something special. And I think every team in this conference is trying to play catch-up in regards to that. I think each one's getting closer, and we'd like to see that gap close through recruiting. But you can only do that through hard work and grinding. And that's what we continue to do in Athens.
We have another question up here on the front, second row.
Coach, Vanderbilt's got 16 starters back. They obviously had some big wins in the conference last year. What do you think of the job that Derek Mason's doing there? What do you think about where their program is right now?
Got a lot of respect for Derek. You know, he is a defensive guy who came up kind of the way I did through, you know, working in the NFL. He also is a defensive coordinator, very successful, and now gone to run his own program. I think they do a tremendous job. He's got a great academic situation up there, and to be honest with you, those kids have bought in and believed in what Derek's doing. And you see it, it's evidence on the field. They play really hard on both sides of the ball. Got a lot of respect for their coaching staff. So I think they do a tremendous job, and they continue to do that.
Okay, we'll go to the center section along our left aisle here.
Zach Arcatib, Sporting News. Coach, how do you think Sonny Michel and Nick Michel play off each other to make each other better? I mean, could you go into a little more detail about their relationship over the last seasons?
Yeah, I think they challenge each other more so, not necessarily in game, but they challenge each other every day in practice. So in the weight room, when one guy lifts beside the other, Nick's not a guy you really want to be competing against when it comes to lifting weight because he's really strong. But I see him race out there at workouts. So when you've got a guy that's the same caliber as you, I think it kind of drives your energy level each day to beat that guy. And I know they came in not really knowing each other, but now having lived together, been around each other, both of them have been through, you know, pretty horrific injuries, and they both come back from that. So they have a lot of similarities, even though they come from two different backgrounds, and they have really different personalities. And I think throughout the day, as you talk to them, you'll get to see that. You know, Sonny impacts our team vocally more. Nick impacts our team with an example more. And I think it's really cool that you got both of them doing that.
Other questions for Coach? If you'll raise your hand, we'll get a microphone to you. We'll go back over here to Bob.
Yeah, I know coaches can get pretty emotional on the sideline. What do you think about the new rule about coaches can't go on the field? Is that going to be hard to comply with at times, you think, for you and the other guys?
Well, we certainly all as coaches have gotten our assignments of our coaches that are going to hang on to us and make sure we don't go across that line. So I'm obviously concerned about it at a critical time, but it is the rule, and we follow the rules. And I think as head coaches, we've got to set a good example. I think that's what the rules are in place for. So it'd be a good job, it'd be a challenging job to manage that, especially at critical times in the game. You'd hate to see a game decided by something like that, but it's the rule. We've been briefed on it, and we all got to adhere to it.
Coach, we'll go out here in the center section right in front of us.
Coach Nick Berg with the Red and Black. Yesterday, Commissioner Sankey talked a little bit about the possibility of a universal drug policy in the SEC. What are your thoughts on that policy?
To be honest with you, I don't have thoughts on that policy. That's something that gets decided above me, and I think it's something that each institution decides right now, and that's where we are right now, so I adhere to that.
Okay, we'll go over on the left-hand side, left section.
Coach Matt Rochelle, Orlando Sentinel. Looking at coaches like Bob Stoops, for instance, who retired in his mid-50s, what do you do as a coach to kind of continue to re-energize yourself, to kind of continue that longevity? And what have you seen from some other coaches you've worked with that have been able to do that sort of thing?
Yeah, I think that's a really cool question, because I think as coaches, if you get bored or you get kind of mundane, first of all, you're not going to recruit very well. So you better re-energize yourself every day you wake up, because it is a war out there in recruiting. So everybody's trying to reinvent the wheel with schemes, with recruiting, different tactics in recruiting, different ways you recruit. I think to stay innovative, the best guys I've been around, the best thing you can do is go visit with other people. You know, and we try every year through our quality control, we go develop, we go visit with somebody else and say, how do you do it? What's the best way to do this? That's exciting to me. When I get to go hear how somebody else does it, and even at 41 years old, I think you can grow and get better, and certainly the best coaches I've been around do the same.
We'll go in the center section, right in the middle.
Hey Coach, Kirby Smart, Tuscaloosa News. You have 21 starters returning. How important is that for the leadership of your team?
21 stars returning. Wow, that is a new one for me. I can't figure it out. I think we had 3 senior offensive linemen, so that math doesn't work there. But last year we had a coach tell us that we had the best talent, and then he had 6 players taken in the first 4 rounds after he said we had better talent than he did, and we had 1 player drafted. So sometimes I don't know where these messages come from, but I'm excited about the players we got returning. We got a lot of competition at a lot of positions, and that fires me up. And I think competition is what makes your team better. And being able to kind of integrate these freshmen into things right now is making our total team better, and we'll continue to do that. But if we don't have 21 starters that I know of, then we're going to have a lot of competition at those positions.
We'll go over the left section on the side on your right.
Josh Kendall with the State Newspaper. Kirby, you mentioned expectations at the outset. How do you expect your players to handle those expectations as they go up fairly considerably this year?
Well, I'll start with our players expect to win, and we don't want players that don't expect to win. When you come to the University of Georgia, that's the man that's set out in front of you. You're going to be one of the best players in the country, coming from one of the best states in the country, one of the best high school football states in the country. We expect those guys to come in with that attitude and demeanor. You create that, and it permeates your program by how you carry yourself, how you perform on the field. And we have not performed on the field to the level that we should, and that's something that we got to continue to improve on.
We'll go here to the center section, second row, Pat.
Yeah, Pat William, son. Kirby, this may sound like a dumb question, but I know it's not your first. Assistant coaches make a ton of money now. They don't have the responsibilities they have to deal with as far as boosters and media, things like this. What is it that makes assistant coaches want to become, like you did, a head coach? And what's the best thing about being a head coach?
I think the desire to find out and be great. I don't think you can really say that you've done all you can do until you take advantage of that opportunity. I think it's a natural progression. You know, why does the assistant coach want to be the coordinator? Because it's the next step. You know, why does the GA want to be an assistant coach? Because it's the next step. I think as a coordinator in college football, that should be your goal. And not everybody may have that goal, but I think it should be your goal to be the head coach. At the end of the day, everybody has to ask themselves, why do I want to be a head coach? And you ask me that question, it's to affect student athletes. I love the fact that I can go back now after coaching 18, 19 years, and I get to see the guys I had an impact on in Valdosta State 18 years ago. And I think that's really cool. I don't think you get that all the time just as an assistant coach, because you might only deal with your unit or your side of the ball. But as a head coach, I get to deal with every player on the team. I get to know those guys personally, and I hope that I affect them in a positive way so that they're better people when they leave the University of Georgia.
Okay, we'll go down here to the left, second row, Tom.
Kirby, Tom Murphy, Arkansas Democrat Gazette. Wonder what you think about the SEC East race. I think it's a pretty open competition this year.
You know, we talked about it, I talked about it last year, and it becomes a tried expression, but when you talk about parity, I think parity is really good competition. I think last year, going into the last, I guess, 2 weeks of the SEC East race, Kentucky is in the race. And when you have that, you've got almost an NFC East or AFC East effect of these NFL conferences where one loss doesn't put you out. You know that the team that's won the East in the last couple of years, you could have 2, maybe 3 losses because there's a very even race there across the board. I think that's good and healthy for the conference. I think the way the playoff system is built now, ultimately you have to win your conference. So getting through your conference and the rigors of your conference becomes the most important goal of each SEC team. Because without that, you don't have much of a chance.
All right, last call for questions for Coach. All right, thank you, Coach, for your time.
Thank you, guys.